Welcome back, Sethbling here. And yesterday I got a new world record in Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World, all 5 games with Ace at 9 minutes and 41 seconds. All right, let me unpack that a little bit. Super Mario All-Stars, that's this cartridge that you see on screen right now. It has 5 different games: Super Mario World, Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2, Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Levels, and Super Mario Brothers 3. 4 of those games were NES games that were re-released in this cartridge for Super Nintendo. So 5 games, I'm going to beat them all. Now, I've shown this on my channel several times, and so I'm not going to talk about all the intricacies of how this route works, but there are quite a few improvements. The last video I showed had a time that was around 12 minutes. This video, 9:41. So several minutes of improvements. I want to talk about what went into those minutes of improvements. And a lot of it comes down to things happening with controllers. So there is also early power-up incrementation, which I don't think I did in my previous run. The idea of early power-up incrementation is that I do the null sprite glitch with Yoshi the first pass through Yoshi's Island 3. So this level that you're seeing right now is Yoshi's Island 2. I beat it and then I go on to Yoshi's Island 3. So on the first time through Yoshi's Island, I'm just getting up and walking away. I'll come back, don't worry. First pass through Yoshi's Island 3, I'll do power-up incrementation by grabbing the 2 Yoshis like normal, and then getting a shell in Yoshi's mouth, and then taking an intentional hit to shed one of the 2 Yoshis. And so it's a little bit different than the normal way I do power-up incrementation. So here you can see the 2 Yoshis. 1, 2, I'm getting on both. So I'm actually riding 2 Yoshis right now. That's a little bit different. And so if I get a shell in Yoshi's mouth and then take a hit, I'll basically drop that 1 Yoshi. And if he dies, then I'll have a different Yoshi, but the game will be confused about what sprite is in Yoshi's mouth. It'll be a null sprite, and I can do... So here you see me taking the intentional hit, and I have Yoshi back anyway. Okay, and then power-up implementation. So now I'm in power-up state 4, catch-up Mario. So that's one of the speed-ups. That's a relatively small one, like around 10 or 12 seconds maybe. The big speed up is what I'm doing with the controllers. So in previous videos, I've talked about how by being in power up state 5 and collecting a 1-up, or being in power up state 15 and collecting a mushroom, I can run an arbitrary code from the sprite X coordinate table. But that's a little bit of an oversimplification. What actually happens is I run code from the controllers that tell the game to run code from the sprite X coordinate table. So each controller has 2 bytes worth of data, basically. Each button is 1 bit, and if it's being held down, it's 1. If it's not, it's 0. There's 12 buttons plus 4 unpressable buttons for a total of 16 buttons per controller, which is 2 bytes. 2 bytes times 4 controllers is 8 bytes. So there's 8 bytes of arbitrary code that you can run on 4 controllers. And it's not fully arbitrary. Like I said, there's 4 buttons you can't press. There's sort of like ID bits. You can't press left and right at the same time. You can't press up and down at the same time. So there's some restrictions on what you can press. And so it's not quite fully arbitrary code, but it's good enough for our purposes. So previously what I'd been doing is just basically using the controllers to, like I said, run code from the sprite X coordinate table. But I figured out some ways to do a lot of what I needed to do in this run by just holding down buttons on the controllers. So the first Ace here, where I collect, Ace of course standing for arbitrary code execution, where I collect this 1-up. Basically, there's just a set of buttons being held on the 4 controllers that put me in game power-up state 15, or let's hexadecimal 15, which is 21 in normal decimal numbers. Then I'll do the shell spits, because the next Ace I need to do will happen over and over again, and I couldn't fit the code into 8 bytes. So I needed more bytes of arbitrary code, and so I get 8 more bytes from the sprite X coordinate table. So I run some code from the controllers, call code, basically call a function from the sprite X coordinate table, return back to the controllers, run a little bit more code. And so that's the code that will corrupt the SMB3 save file. Again, it matters what bits are being basically created by the second controller. So what buttons are being held down on the second controller. So each time I collect this mushroom, it's running some code. Specifically, the second controller says what value to load into one of the registers. And then it's running some code from the sprite X coordinate table that basically says, write that value into the SMB3 save file. And then there's a little bit more code that says increment the value in the SMB3 save file. Then here you can see another big speed up. I'm jumping and collecting actual multiple mushrooms per jump. So this is a really, really big speed up. Basically, by clamping down a different set of buttons on the first controller, I'm able to jump and collect mushrooms rather than having to collect them one at a time, letting the mushroom fall into Mario. Here you can see on screen, I kind of forgot what the button was next. What set of buttons I was supposed to hold on the second controller. But yeah, so instead of, still most of the code injection relies on going one byte at a time, pressing a set of buttons on the second controller, pressing select on the main controller, and just letting the mushroom fall into Mario. But there is a set of 29 zeros in a row and another set of 10 zeros in a row where I don't need to be holding any buttons on the second controller. And so this is the second set, that's the set of 10. And so I just need to collect a mushroom 10 times. And so it's a lot faster to be able to jump and collect it. Now here you can see something else. I'm actually hot swapping 2 controllers. So this run, even though there's only 4 controllers connected at a time, I actually have a total of 6 controllers with clamps kind of pre-prepared on the controllers. So I'm hot swapping 2 of the controllers. So there are 4 controllers, 2 of them get hot swapped to 2 other controllers, and that's how I did the credits warp. It's another ace that only relies on the controllers. And so I had to figure out a clever way, calling myself clever. I had to figure out a way to basically get the code that I needed to run in those 8 bytes of almost arbitrary code of the controller data. And so I was able to do that for both the first and the last ace. Again, the first ace being the one where I gave myself power up state 15, and the last ace being the one where I warped to the credits. And then the intermediary aces where I was injecting data into the SMB3 save file, there's just not enough space in the controllers to make it work. And also because you can only press certain combination of buttons, it also means you really need some arbitrary code from the SpriteDex coordinate table to make that one work. But the end result is that I don't have to re-enter and do shell spits multiple times or do some of the RAM setup stuff. I can do a lot of that stuff only once, and it just speeds up the run, well, by a little over 2 minutes. Yeah, around 2 minutes is the end result of all those speed ups. And here you're seeing the rest of the run where, of course, we corrupted the SMB3 save file for the purpose of having this ace that runs when you load up SMB3 and use the first item in Mario's hotbar. And so that's why you see me loading up Super Mario Bros. 3 and then immediately using an invalid item from Mario's hotbar, and that payload that we wrote to the SMB3 save file gets run, and it will launch these other games in the final level of each of the games. So this is D4, which is the final level of Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Level. We saw 8-4 for Super Mario Brothers 1. We'll see actually 7-6 for Super Mario Brothers 2. Again, 7-6 is not a real level. It's a glitched level that happens to pull data from 7-2. And by loading 7-6, we sort of basically get to cheat and load 7-2 kind of in the middle of the level. We just have to go through a couple doors and then intentionally die to sort of reset the level and make it actually level 7-2. But that's what you see here. So I load SMB3, I immediately open the item bar and use a glitched item. It's very fast, and that calls some code to like launch the other game. And you can't hear it because I've muted the audio, so I'm not talking over myself. But it actually has the SMB3 sound engine still loaded. So all the sounds are from SMB3. If you check out my highlight on Twitch, you can hear the SMB3 sounds playing, and it's quite amusing. But yeah, I'm really happy with these improvements. Of course, my run, if you didn't hear the news, my run was accepted to Summer Games Done Quick. I posted a video a little over a month ago, basically as my submission video, and they took some time to mull it over and decided, yes, they wanted my run in SGDQ. So I've been practicing it, and trying to improve the run ever since. And this can be done even faster. Like I said, there's 4 controllers. I'm hot swapping 2 controllers. I spend a bunch of time messing with clamps and reclamping and everything. And so at SGDQ, I plan on having 3 other people holding the extra controllers. And so instead of having to mess with clamps and reclamp things and hot swap controllers, it'll just be people pressing different sets of buttons. And so that's the plan. Here we go. And with the final credits warp for the 5th game, 9:41. That's the final time. So I'm very excited about getting to actually run this at SGDQ. I was excited. I was probably going to go to SGDQ even if the run didn't get in, just to hang out with other speedrunners. And I've had a blast at the AGDQs that I went to, so I'm very excited and I'm a little nervous. There's a lot of ways this can go wrong, but I think if I practice this enough, it should go smoothly at the marathon. So, but that's what's up with all the new tech in this category. I don't know how much faster it can go. Things are pretty compressed already, but there's probably still room for improvement. We'll see if I come up with anything else. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching.